This is CBC Vancouver News.
Makes it really hard and dangerous for me to leave my walker.
Tonight on CBC Vancouver News, winter's grip on much of the South Coast continues. It's about to get a lot worse before it gets better. And
any new homes, first of all, that have never been frozen before always encounter, some difficulties.
Freezing temperatures not just a problem on the roads, but at home too. What you can do to avoid costly repairs for pipe problems. Also, closure for some waiting on an answer for 2 years. Life sentence in prison for a man who admitted to killing 3 family members. Good evening, I'm Zahra Premji. Thanks for joining us tonight. As you may have seen or experienced, much of BC is slowed down by snow, cold and ice, and more flurries in some parts as we speak. If you don't need to be on the road, emergency officials are warning you to stay off of them. This was just over an hour ago in downtown Vancouver. Cars already loaded with snow. The temperature visibly cooler in a city just not used to it. And this, a view from Richmond heading into Vancouver. This morning, though, Highway 1 looked like this, snarled by gridlock after the second major snowstorm.
The main roads are fine, like 16th and Burrard and Arbutus, all good. But the residential streets are not plowed, and so they're touch and go.
It's been pretty bad out there, and we are asking people to remember to be safe. Road salt has also become a hot commodity, but here is a picture of children enjoying what was happening out there. It is winter break, Queen Elizabeth Park, snow tobogganing down. This is a frozen picture outside the legislature where the pond normally would be flowing, but not so much today. Take a listen to what we heard about the hot commodity of snow. Well, while others were not struggling, there has been some closures that we should tell you about. The winter weather is here to stay for snow, affecting some British Columbians' ability to travel, work, or stay safe and warm. And as the CBC's Lindsay Duncombe tells us, it's going to get worse before it gets better.
The rituals of winter are unfamiliar here.
Well, -9 right now. We're not used to this cold weather at this time. Actually, at any time.
Daniel Ching would usually spend the day outside collecting bottles. Instead, he's crowded in a warming center with other people who don't have anywhere else to go.
Today, I didn't even leave the shelter. It's too cold.
He's struggling.
Drivers are unpracticed in snow.
Oh my God, good thing we pulled off.
This is what Highway 1 looked like on this morning's commute. Icy gridlock. This afternoon, a blunt message from the province. If you don't have winter tires, and many don't, stay off the roads. Ice and snow are slowing down planes too. As the delays pile up, the waits get longer. This Whistler bike mechanic is headed to Dublin to see his sick grandma. He'll be late.
About a day. Yeah, there's not too much, so I'll get there.
Getting anywhere is tough if you're on foot, using a walker.
The ice is built up there, and it makes it really hard and dangerous for me.
Valerie Longjohn moved to Vancouver from Saskatoon to get away from weather like this.
2 weeks ago, I phoned my daughter-in-law, and she said it was -41, and they had so much snow that her husband couldn't shovel all the snow away.
So it could be worse.
Oh yeah, a lot worse.
Bad news, though, worse is coming.
And we're going to get some heavy snowfall through places like Victoria, Vancouver, Fraser Valley, and the Coquihalla as well. So, there's going to be quite a bit of snow from tonight into tomorrow morning.
So there is the potential for another messy, if not outright dangerous, commute tomorrow morning. Remember, it was just a couple of weeks ago when the snow hit, just as people were driving home. And in that case, some people spent 12 hours in their cars. So having just gone through that, there's some anxiety about what the next day or so could bring. Lindsay Duncombe, CBC News, Vancouver.
Now, the weather is also wreaking havoc on end-of-semester exams for some university students. UBC's Point Grey campus has canceled 8:30 a.m. and 12 p.m. in-person and on-campus exams. SFU and UVic ask students to check their campus websites by 6 a.m. Now, the extreme cold is putting a strain on homes and public infrastructure, too. A state of emergency has been declared in Prince Rupert after water mains froze. And as John Hernandez reports, plumbers are seeing a big surge in calls province-wide.
We're not really built for sub-zero temperatures.
The extreme cold took a quick and heavy toll in Prince Rupert. Water mains below the streets froze and then burst. A state of emergency declared Saturday, still in effect.
When we declared the state of emergency, we already had a number of breaks just in the week that had led up to that Saturday. We've had 3 more since.
Pipes underground, aging and unable to withstand the current cold snap.
The one pipe that we pulled out of the ground just last night, I believe, was 106 years old, and it basically crumbling in people's hands as they're pulling it out.
As extreme cold and snowfall warnings blanket much of the province through the week, a sudden surge in calls to plumbers and restoration crews.
Always the first really cold snap in every city is very busy for us, because what happens is that any new homes, first of all, that have never been frozen before always encounter, some difficulties. As well, homes that have been renovated over the summer.
One of the biggest complaints is, just heating systems that have not been maintained, failing, or we have issues where some of the houses are not properly insulated and the water lines freeze.
This Metro Vancouver plumbing company is so busy it's had to turn down jobs.
Unfortunately, we have had to turn away. We prioritize people that have worked with us before, and we also have an ear out for the situation. We try to take care of the elderly.
So how can you avoid costly repairs at this time of year?
When there's a cold snap, turn your thermostat up a degree or 2, and that'll help offset some of the freezing issues.
If you've ever noticed on a really cold day that you turn on the tap and nothing happens, or that the water comes out really, really slowly, that's a dead giveaway that you've got some sort of freezing issue with your plumbing, and you need to call a plumber and get it looked at right away.
A call that, if made early enough, can save you a lot of stress. John Hernandez, CBC News, Vancouver.
Now, if you're traveling for the holidays, BC Ferries is asking passengers to pack their patience if they plan to travel. Now, it's put on 151 extra sailings on its busiest routes, but a smaller one is out of commission for now. The sailing between Vesuvius on Salt Spring Island and Crofton on Vancouver Island is canceled after the motor and throttle on its rescue boat froze in the cold.
We did have an issue with the rescue boat on startup this morning. So unfortunately, we have had to temporarily suspend service until we can get that rescue boat fixed. It is a piece of safety equipment that we must have working in proper order in order to be able to sail.
Ferries did set up a free water taxi to get people between the terminals, and customers can travel between Fulford Harbour on Salt Spring and Schwartz Bay. BC Ferries expect 780,000 passengers to sail with them over the next 10 days of the holidays. Now, as the cold weather persists, advocates in Cranbrook say more support for people without homes is crucial. A temporary shelter is running out of the Travelodge Hotel. But as CBC's Corey Bullock reports, despite early arrivals, residents are not guaranteed a bed.
It's really stressful trying to make sure that you're there at 4 and getting anything else that you need to do done during the day. There should be definitely more shelter support for sure.
With only 8 drop-in beds at the temporary shelter in Cranbrook, many are left to sleep in the cold.
We have seen crazy amounts of frostbite from our people who are living out in the cold, and people are losing fingers and toes because of this right now.
Polly Sutherland is the team lead with Anchors East Kootenay, which supports the homeless population.
People with substance use disorder and that are extremely vulnerable don't have they don't have the tools right now in their toolbox to be able just to pull up their socks, get a job, and do something about that. They need us to support them.
Add to the lack of shelter a toxic drug supply and freezing temperatures. Advocates say the combination is leaving people incapacitated, sometimes for days, and potentially impeding their recovery.
We're seeing a lot of people nodding out, or like basically completely losing consciousness for long periods of time. They're losing sometimes a day to 2 days, where they just don't remember what's gone on just because of how much of this benzodiazepine is present.
Polly Sutherland of Anchor says that for now, the Baptist Church in Cranbrook will be opening its doors to the unhoused starting tomorrow night. Corey Bullock, CBC News, Cranbrook.
The search for a hiker from the U.S. missing on Vancouver Island has been called off. Melissa McDevitt was last heard from on December 8th after she didn't show up for a flight home. RCMP released surveillance footage of McDevitt walking on a trail on December 9th. Her vehicle was found near the Souk Potholes Provincial Park on December 10th. Mounties and the Juan de Fuca Search and Rescue suspended their search after one of the largest searches in the province ever.
Despite the effort, the terrain is very difficult. It would be very easy for Melissa to be missed. We certainly were as thorough as we could possibly be, but knew that locating her was going to be a challenge, particularly given that we knew she was likely unresponsive. It's always devastating to searchers when we're not able to locate someone.
To other news now, a man who admitted to stabbing 3 family members to death before setting their house on fire has been sentenced to life in prison. Kia Ibrahimian will not be allowed to apply for parole for 15 years. Earlier this fall, he pleaded guilty to second-degree murder in the killings of his brother Befrin Ibrahimian, mother Tatiana Baziar, and her partner Francesco Zangrilli in Langley in June 2020. Firefighters found their bodies inside this house after they put out the fire. Second-degree murder carries on automatic life sentence. The BC government says the number of surgeries being performed now is higher than ever, and almost all operations that were postponed because of the pandemic have now been completed. Non-urgent surgeries were postponed at the start of the pandemic to make room for COVID-19 patients. But as new surges and waves hit, they again were paused. BC's health minister says nearly all patients who still wanted surgery after the pandemic delays have now had their procedures.
We postponed surgeries in the tens of thousands because of the actions taken when COVID-19 was declared a public health emergency. That the wait lists in BC, of course, grew as a result of that. We've actually postponed surgeries, and then surgeries that would have happened in April and May of 2020 and did not happen.
Dig says BC is in for a record year when it comes to surgeries, saying there have been 4% more surgeries in the province during the first half of the fiscal year compared to the same period in 2019. It's a debate that feels as old as Christmas itself now. Get a real Christmas tree or a fake one. For customers of Trinity Tree Farms in Kelowna, the matter has met its match and the topic debated heavily. Take a look.
Here at Trinity Christmas Tree Farm, we sell Christmas trees. Local ones, most of them are from Enderby that we grow ourselves, the Douglas fir, and then we bring in the specialty trees as well, the Noble, Fraser, and Grand Firs, also done by another local company.
We get one every year, and we have to have a live tree. It smells right. It's a nostalgia factor, and so we since we discovered this lot a couple years ago, we've been coming here every year. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be a tree. It's the right shape. Like, it's hard to find a tree here that's not a Christmas tree. So.
Well, thank you for coming early, and I'm glad everybody was able to hopefully get a tree, and looking forward to seeing everybody for next year. And hopefully we can get them out earlier so everybody gets exactly what they want.
horrific scene as officers find 5 victims shot and killed in 3 separate units in a condo building just north of Toronto. We'll have more on that coming up next. Thanks so much for sticking with us during our commercial-free live stream. In the face of public anxiety during the pandemic, an Edmonton sculptor hid some of his art in the River Valley and invited people to hunt for it. This inspired a movement called Radical Generosity, which uncovers the good work happening in the community.
We were coming up with items for silent auction and came across an individual, Slavo, who does sculptures around the city. And just kind of the stories that kind of came back were absolutely amazing. He noticed people being tired of being cooped up in their homes, so he came up with an idea about taking one of his sculptures and hiding it in the River Valley.
I was kind of sensing there was a real anxiety in the air here in the city, and people were unsure of how to navigate the lockdowns. I wanted to come up with a fun way to get people outside and involved in a safe way, so I came up with this concept of the art hunt. Literally thousands of people showed up to look for these things.
People would go out with their families and they'd come back and people would find them, obviously, but then they'd also say, you know, this was such an amazing experience. It's not all doom and gloom. There is a light. Philanthropy is not just a rich person giving lots of money to a cause. It's people doing whatever they can to help others. Radical generosity, because it is radical, it's different. This is not a campaign. This is, as far as we're concerned, this is a movement. This is something to point out to others that there is goodness around us. It's not all bad. I think people want to know that there's hope. Radical generosity is that. It shows that we still have hope for humanity, for people to step up. And it doesn't have to be a big thing. It just has to be a small thing, but that it's important to someone else.
It's an important way to give back to the community that's supported me through this pandemic, and I think it's important to give back when you can.
That sounds pretty awesome. I hope we have some radical generosity here. I challenge you to try it out. All right, stick around. We'll have more coming up in just a moment. Police have identified the suspect in a mass shooting at a condo building north of Toronto that left 5 people dead. In addition to the suspect, a 6th person was wounded.
There was an interaction between the officers and a 73-year-old male suspect, a resident of that building, who died on the 3rd floor. He's been identified as Francesco Villi.
Officers responded to reports of a shooter last night at the building. Victims were found on several different floors. 3 men and 2 women were killed. A 6th person, a woman, was taken to hospital. In Ontario's police watchdog also says the 73-year-old suspected gunman lived in the building. Police say 3 of the 5 victims were members of the building's condo board. And court documents show a man by the same name had a long-standing dispute with the board. Now, while many in BC are adjusting to using or being offered reusable bags instead of plastic, there are concerns the swap might not be the best solution yet. Walmart Canada dropped plastic bags months ago, decided to offer reusable totes for purchase or free for customers ordering pickup or delivery orders. As Sophia Harris reports, some people now have hundreds of reusable bags, many more than they can use, and they're wasting away.
Larry Grant applauds the ban on plastic bags, but says this is not a smart alternative. Grant gets weekly grocery pickup from Walmart, where the plastic bags were nixed in April. Now, each order arrives in new reusable bags, so far totaling about 300. Are you able to reuse all of these?
No, I can't. I'm really frustrated. I just hope they will think about this failure, I would say, and come up with a solution.
We get like 10 to 15 of them every single week.
Natalie and Udi Selig at Walmart grocery delivery. They too are overwhelmed.
We can't return them. We can't really do much with them. This is something that, it's supposed to resolve an environmental issue, but at the same time, it actually creates more waste.
It's the right thing to do.
Walmart says its plastic bag ban is a win for the environment. But experts say this is a problem because reusable bags aren't always worthwhile.
Because of the types of materials that you use and the manufacturing process that you use to make a more durable reusable bag, you're just ending up using more energy. The environmental benefits are accrued when you use it again and again.
A recent United Nations study found a polypropylene bag needs to be used 10 to 20 times, a cotton one up to 150 times, to have a less harmful impact on the environment than a single-use plastic bag.
Just making that switch from single-use to reusable isn't always going to just end up better for the environment.
With the federal government phasing out all single-use plastic shopping bags in Canada, we could see a lot more of these, especially as grocery delivery grows in popularity. Grocer Metro says it has a solution. Customers can get their groceries delivered in a reusable plastic bin.
It's never ending, look at that.
But some Walmart customers are still waiting for an end to this. The company says it's exploring alternatives. Sophia Harris, CBC News, Toronto.
All right, here's a snowy live shot of Grouse Mountain. Wow, take a look at that. John Sauter will have your full forecast coming up next.
Oh, question mark.
10-year-old Nikoyo Fitzpatrick is another homeschooler. He's been out of public school for a year and a half. Nikoyo's last class had 42 students, and he doesn't miss it.
In school, you all have to do the same thing, even if you're at a higher or lower level. And when you're doing home education, you can go at your level.
So change it to quarter note.
Nikoyo's father, Sands, has a degree in mathematics and a teaching certificate. Joanne Harrington also has a university degree. But you don't need special qualifications to teach at home. Parents can legally do the job themselves as long as they give their children an adequate education.
When you pull this up, that comes up and lets the water through.
British Columbia has more homeschoolers than the rest of the country combined, about 2,200. Many found out about home education through Tunya Odan. Odan is a taxi driver with a teaching certificate. She's also founder of the Education Advisory Service. Odan promotes home education. She says BC leads the country because more people are aware of homeschooling, because of a West Coast zeal for independence, and because of conflict.
BC has a very volatile educational scene. It's very confrontational. It's very frustrating, it's very difficult. There's been reports which say people are very concerned about the increasing mediocrity in the school system, the deterioration of the system. Whether it's so or not, that's the feeling. It's a very strong perception. And so people are just looking around for alternative.
Many educators are concerned about homeschooling as an alternative. They're afraid the kids miss out, that public school can teach them more about living and working with people who are different than they are.
Often the parents of children who want to educate their own children are highly motivated, will put a tremendous amount of energy into doing that and are very successful. If they want to make that contribution, and we're prepared to do it in addition to and on top of what the school institution can offer, the child would be yet far better off.
Go back to note 67.
Nikoyo's and Claire's parents were concerned their kids would lose out, but they've gotten around that. Their kids play with friends after school. Joanne has signed Claire up for programs like Brownies, and after a few weeks of teaching at home, she's optimistic.
I haven't managed to juggle the things that I used to do before she was home with me all day with the role of being a teacher, and that's my biggest problem, and I think once I get that organized, things will go smoother. But she's very happy at home, and our days are busy doing things.
Joanne Harrington is simply more involved with her daughter's education. For Tunya Odan, that's the key.
Parents have got to start being a lot more influential, and they have to count in their children's lives and not be just left to the experts in the schools. And we don't know what's going on in the schools. We don't know if there's damage or otherwise, and parents have to be a lot more involved.
Land Back is a CBC original podcast where we uncover land theft in Canada and look at how Indigenous people are taking it all back. Land Back is out now on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace, installing the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train.
Well, joining me now is CBC meteorologist John Sauter. John, there's snow, there's cold. I'm usually a fan, but even I'm a bit concerned at this point, and I'm hearing there's more of that on the way, hey?
Well, Zahra, if you don't like snow and you don't like the cold, and I think you probably do, you're a lot like me, but if you don't like those things, I'm afraid I don't have a whole lot of good news. Check out the weather alert map behind me, and it's pretty colorful. We've got in the yellow areas, this is a winter storm warning just east of Vancouver. Vancouver now in a snowfall warning for upwards of 20 centimeters by this time tomorrow. We've got Arctic outflow warnings, extreme cold warnings, winter storm warnings across much of Vancouver Island, and snowfall warnings out into the southern part of the Okanagan Valley, and then a lot of this to the north as well. Arctic outflow, extreme cold. It extends out into Alberta for much of the western edge of the country. This is the upper trough. Anywhere in the blue is just very cold air. As we move through the rest of the week, this very cold air really covers all of Western Canada, including the eastern prairies, but there is a glimmer of hope as we get into the Christmas weekend. By Saturday in the afternoon, Christmas Eve, we're looking at warmer conditions for southern BC, Alberta, parts of Saskatchewan. But look how far south that cold air digs, almost down to Florida, and by that time, eastern Canada is well involved in that very cold air. A look at some of the afternoon temperatures, -7 in Vancouver. Never got really too far past -30 in some parts of the central province. And in the north, where we started the day at -40, we're looking at temperatures staying in the mid-30s. It looks like the snow that is on the way for tonight is going to move through into Tuesday morning and out of the way on into the afternoon. And if you look at forecast snowfall amounts by tomorrow morning, we could see 13 to 16 centimeters on the ground by morning, and then you look at these amounts on into the afternoon, and they are really staggering. Victoria, 38, might be a little overdone because I think a lot of this is going to melt on contact. So, forecast conditions for tonight, a steady temperature in Vancouver, very cold across the north, even as low as -40 in Fort Nelson, and then tomorrow, once again, staying in the -30s, even mid-30s. Around -19 to -20 in Kamloops and a high of -3 in Vancouver, -2 in Victoria. The coldest air will be on Wednesday and Thursday. We do start to warm up with some snow toward the end of the week, and then really warming up with some rain for the Christmas weekend. Zahra?
All right. Thank you so much, John. Well, I guess it's just snow, 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 which is the moral of the story. Well, that's your late news for this snowy Monday. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, before you let that head hit the pillow, you know what I'm going to say. Take one last browse through what's making headlines on our website, cbc.ca/BC. Stay safe out there and have a good night.